All right, I think we're on. Are we on? Okay, good. So who's from out of state? Raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, thanks. All right, so we're going to talk about fulvic acid. It's, throughout my career, I like to go to seminars. It's fun for me to go to a seminar and sit and learn and network with other doctors and the teachers and all that. So I was at this seminar through a company called Cellcore Biosciences. I've talked about them quite a bit in my last few months of YouTube videos. And I've been sort of diving into the fulvic acid nutrient, like what is it, where does it come from, what does it do, and why does it work the way that it works. I did a video on YouTube called The Greatest Adaptogen, fulvic acid, the greatest adaptogen. So we'll get into all that. It's pretty interesting stuff. And then I'll go over some of these supplements that they have. And there's a lot of other companies that make some sort of derivative of fulvic acid, whether natural or they change it in the lab or something. So we can talk a little bit about that. Okay, so who saw my 3-minute speech at the USDA Dietary Guidelines Committee meeting? Okay, so that was Thursday. That was Friday. And I just want to give a few comments on that. So it's a toss-up whether or not they're going to allow the low-carb diet as an option for the upcoming dietary guidelines recommendations for the next 5 years. It's a toss-up. So now I spoke there in July. I think I'm the only person to speak twice to the committee. There was only 2 opportunities. So I flew to DC in July and then I did it again in Houston. But during the break on Friday, I was in the hallway and one of the committee members walked by me and I stopped her. And her name is Heather and she's a low-carb advocate. She's one of 2 or 3 out of 20 or 25. And she didn't want to talk to anybody. She didn't want to talk to me. But I stopped her. I said, "Hey, do you remember me?" She said, "Yes." And I said, "Do you think there's a possibility that there'd be a low-carb option in the next guidelines?" And she said, "I can't answer that." And she got really red and she smiled and she turned around and she walked away. So she's not allowed to answer it. And I didn't know that until later. So it was kind of like not appropriate for me to even ask her, to be real. But based on that, I kind of think that maybe there's that slight possibility because of her smile when she smiled at me, And that's one thing that was hit on in July and this Friday by various speakers, the low-carb speakers. Like, if people want to be vegan, low-fat, no oil, and no salt, that's fine. That's their choice. But there shouldn't be a government, anybody, saying that we can't have a low-carb option. Like, and all the science shows that low-carb always beats low-fat, always. 77 to 0, 32 to 0. Low-fat always loses in the randomized control trials and the clinical trials. So that was a lot of fun to do that. And if you haven't seen it, check it out on my on the internet. There's a channel on YouTube called Low Carb Action Network, and they have about 8 different 3-minute speeches from that day, all from low carbers. And then on my channel, I put that 3 minutes as a community setting. It's like YouTube is so diverse now in what they offer. It's almost like Instagram and Twitter and Facebook, but they have a community tab where you can put in a comment with a little video. So I put it there. So there's some comments on that. All right, so let's talk about fulvic acid. So I learned about potash. Okay, do you know what potash is? Yeah? So when you have a campfire and you have wood burning and you have a pot in the center of it, you're cooking your food in that pot, the heat underneath the pan or pot is hotter than around the pot just because the metal is bouncing the heat back down. So in the morning, when the fire is out, everybody's waking up, you look at this fire pit, it's black on the outside and it's white in the center. It's white in the center because that's where the pot was. So that ash got hotter than the rest of the wood and it's white. And that is nutritional. And there are traditional cultures who use that as seasoning and they sprinkle it on their food. Just like we sprinkle salt on our food. Other cultures would use potash as a seasoning. So basically they're eating dirt. but it's not dirt, right? It's burnt wood to a very, very high temperature. So it has some special properties in there. That's just an example of eating dirt. So dirt is like it's a special category when it comes to consuming a nutritional supplement, for example. So you can have minerals, you can have vitamins, you can have glandulars like liver, you can have herbs. These are all different categories. Now, when I talk about eating special dirt, there's other terms in there like binders, for example, binders. So a binder is a nutritional chemical, if you will, and it grabs onto toxins inside your body and holds on really tight. So it binds really tight, and then it goes through your body, and it leaves through the intestines or it leaves through the kidneys. So a binder will do the detoxification for you. Now there's other nutritional supplements that will enhance your body's ability to detoxify. So there's like glutathione, that's an example, N-acetylcysteine, lipoic acid. These are nutritional supplements that you can take, and it makes your cells work better and enhance your body's own detoxification properties, facilities. Does that make sense? Okay. So the binders come from dirt, and various nutritional companies will then enhance them in some way. And I'm going to get into that. So having said that, I've talked about potash, I've talked about binders. Now let's talk about like fulvic acid. So I did make some slides here. So let me turn this on. You should keep that up. Turn the light up, yeah. So fulvic acid, and there's a related component called humic acid. And there's just a slight difference in how they perform inside the body. These are both acids. Okay, so by definition, fulvic acid is derived from humic substances, meaning types of dirt. And I'll show you some pictures, which are formed naturally during the decay of plants and animal residues. These cannot be made in a lab. No human being can make fulvic acid or humic acid. It's only done by Mother Nature. Fulvic acid is an extract from ancient plants. This is from a different website. Carrying their nutritional and remedial value. Remedial means remedy. Like, here, take this remedy, it'll help you feel better. So it's from it's ancient plants. So you're getting those minerals and those nutritional value from ancient plants, yeah? Huh? My mic's right here. Is that better? Let's see if that's better. Okay, so run back and let me know if this is better. Okay, so the word fulvic derives its name from the Latin fulvus, meaning deep yellow, reddish yellow, golden, or tawny yellowish brown color. It's about the color. I'm going to jump ahead to slide number 7. So there you have different colors right there of humic and fulvic acids. So fulvic is more like yellow, brown, light yellow. And then the darker is humic acid. Humic here has very little value if we were to consume it. The most value is right here, kind of in the middle, yellow, brown, dark brown. No? What does that link to? Look at the thing there and see if that says. I don't know, it's probably YouTube or something. It's probably the app. Is it bad, or is it okay? Okay. That's great. There's never a solution for audio. I've only been at this 5 years.
Just tell them we tried.
We tried. Okay. Okay, so this is my favorite dictionary. I use dictionaries. Etymonline.com right here. Etymology Online. And you get the derivation of the words. It's not a regular dictionary. So humic acid, the word that's a C, not a D. Humic acid, vegetable mold, like plants, decayed plants, ancient plants. 1796, from Latin humus meaning earth, soil, probably humi on the ground, coming from earth, from the first language, PIE. I forgot what PIE stands for, but that's the first language. Okay, so I kind of think of this as like human too, like human beings, humic acid, human, earth. Okay, all right. So fulvic acid, what does it do? It absorbs from soil minerals and trace elements. It's in the soil, right? So from the soil, minerals and trace elements, and all nutritional and remedial components left there by microbial action. So you got bugs in there that are eating various things, and they're excreting waste, and they're creating biochemical reactions. So those microbes then are creating food, basically, and the humic or the fulvic acid transfers this valuable content into plant cells, where it is metabolized and used for healthy growth. When plants die and eventually decompose, they return their mineral, nutritional, and remedial value, fulvic acid including, back to the soil, and the cycle repeats itself again. So just as it works for plants, fulvic acid has a very similar action and an associated spectrum of outstanding benefits for humans and animals. So it can help you absorb nutrients, take in nutrients, minerals, and stuff like that, and make you healthy. So this is from a website called fulvicforce.co.za. I'm going to show you some pictures now. Now, just think of this as a Rubik's Cube. This is fulvic acid. How many different combinations can you have of, can you see the red dot? Okay, it's a little small, isn't it? All right. But the point is, there are so many different combinations that you can have of, like, there's a hydrogen, there's an oxygen, and at the very end there's a carbon. Here's a carbon, 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 carbon here. Anywhere you don't see an O or an H, there's a carbon. This is organic chemistry, right? You have regular chemistry you study in college, and then you have organic chemistry. It's a whole other subject. And organic chemistry means it's organized, and it's all organized around carbon. It's as simple as that. Carbon is what organizes the randomity of chemistry. So carbon can have it can attach 4 things to it. All right, so for example, here we have a carbon right there, and it's attached to another carbon and attached to 3 H's, 3 hydrogens. So there's the 4 attachments. That's an example. Okay, so I'm going to show you this one right here. Okay, this is still fulvic acid, but it's still the same pattern of, like, I'm sorry, this, I know, I'm going to keep using this even though it's a faint red dot. So the carbon there with this attachment, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's a double bond to the oxygen. So here we have a carbon right there. It's got 2 attachments to this 1 oxygen, and then this attachment and that attachment. The whole point is every carbon has 4 attachments. Okay. Now, but what's cool about this and what's interesting is that on this carbon right here, we have 1 oxygen and 1 hydrogen, and that's only 3 attachments. And so it can accept 1 more oxygen or 1 more hydrogen. That way it'll have 4 attachments. So it can accept things and hold on to them. Okay, simple enough. All right. And then also too, let me go to the next one. So here we have, up here we have a carbon with 2 oxygens and a hydrogen. That can easily donate an oxygen. Or over here it can donate a hydrogen. So it can donate and receive hydrogens and oxygens. That's the bottom line. So it's kind of like you're at an airport, you're in an airplane, and you're in first class, and the stewardess has this huge plate of all kinds of healthy food for you. and he or she brings this to you, and you can take whatever you want. That's what this is doing. It's going into the cells and into the mitochondria, and it's saying, here, take whatever you want. And in here, too, there's other minerals. And it can donate other minerals, not just carbons and hydrogens. Okay, now, having said that, you're still on the plane, and you have garbage, so you give that to the stewardess, and they take it away. So you're removing waste. This is removing waste out of cells. It's donating the good stuff, and it's taking away the bad stuff. It's as simple as that. That's what this does. That's what this does. It's simple enough, right? You got that? All right, cool.
Take the word for it.
Yeah. Now, if you're in the plane and your mercury filling falls out of your teeth, right? Out of your tooth, that's a super, super toxic substance, right? If this happens in a school, they shut down the school. All the kids have to go home, and they get people coming in with the Tyvek suits and the respirators and all that stuff, and they clean up the mercury, like a mercury spill in a school. That's how dangerous mercury is. Let's say you're on a plane, and this mercury filling falls out of your tooth, and you give it to the stewardess, and she encloses it, and she traps it, and it's so tightly bound by her hands that there's no damage whatsoever as she carries it, to the back of the plane, and she disposes of it in the plane. And nobody's negatively affected by it. There's no vapors, nobody's breathing in vapors. See what I'm saying? So even the most dangerous stuff in your body, mercury, lead, tin, cadmium, all that stuff, it gets trapped by the fulvic acid. And it goes right in the center of these 6 carbon rings, right in the center. That's where the toxins go. It's kind of magical. It's kind of cool how that works. Now, another thing, this kind of blew me away when I learned this, is that the fulvic acid can go inside a cell, and it'll identify that maybe the cell needs some, like a nutrient, like a mineral, like cobalt. Okay, it'll make cobalt, and then donate that to the cell. It'll make nitrogen. It'll make calcium. It makes minerals and gives it to the cell or gives it to the mitochondria. And when I heard this from the scientist who taught it, I said, how do they know? Like, how do they measure that? He goes, we've been at this 40 years. Like, duh. Like, everybody knows, he's a scientist, right? So his personality skills aren't super great. I was like, oh, okay, so you've been at this 40 years, cool. But this is quantum mechanics. And they don't really use that term anymore. They use nanoscience. They use that term. Instead of quantum mechanics, they use nanoscience. So he said, we've had 40 years of nanoscience to measure this. I was like, okay, great. Got it. All right, but you can get this stuff as a nutritional supplement, and you can take it. I'm going to give you a success story here on this in a second. All right, so I got the links here on the rest of these slides. How many slides do I have left? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 slides. All right, so ScienceDirect.com, this article. Okay, fulvic acid, it exhibits antioxidant, immunomodulatory, anti-inflammatory, adaptogenic, and anti-dyslipidemic activities, meaning it can fix up your cholesterol. It has cholinergic, meaning it helps your liver and your gallbladder, and parasympathomimetic effects, meaning it helps your body heal. It mimics your parasympathetic nervous system, and that nervous system helps you heal and sleep and rest and repair. Studies conducted in animal models tend to support it as a revitalizer, enhancing physical performance and relief from fatigue with enhanced ATP production. That's phenomenal right there, what that means, ATP production. I gotta take a note here. Okay, so what that means is inside your cells, about 2/3 of your cells is filled with mitochondria. That's the powerhouse for where your cells make energy. Now, a long time ago, there were cells, and then there were these other little organisms that were smaller than cells, and they were two separate entities. Well, these other cells engulfed the smaller cells, and that's how now we have in our bodies cells and mitochondria. It's like the mitochondria were hijacked by our cells a few billion years ago, or something like that. All right, so it's pretty amazing, but the mitochondria make ATP. That's the energy of our body. Our body uses ATP to do things. Now, what is ATP? It stands for adenosine triphosphate. Tri means 3. Phosphate means phosphorus. So phosphorus is what they make napalm with. Phosphorus will burn. It burns really easily. And in the presence of, there's red phosphorus, there's yellow phosphorus, there's like 6 different types of phosphorus. But red phosphorus, if you have it in your hand, it glows from within. It burns because it's in the presence of oxygen. So oxygen and phosphorus is energy. It burns. So, and then we think of the word pharaoh. That comes from the same derivative of the word phosphorus, like light and sun. Phos means light from within, and pho means light. So we're just putting this whole word together. Pho, pharaoh, phosphorus, phos. It all means light from within. So ATP is made in the mitochondria, and it gets dumped into the cell, and then the ATP drops off 1 phosphorus and 1 oxygen, and that burns. And then it goes back into the cell, and it reseals itself. Okay, did you follow me on that? I tried to make it super easy, but it's really cool because it's like your body's, it's literally burning phosphorus like napalm. And the amount of ATP you make every day is equal to how much you weigh. So I'm like 180, I make 180 pounds of ATP every day. Like that's healthcare right there. If you can make ATP at the right amount or more, you're doing pretty good. That means your immune system is super strong. That's that word immunomodulatory. And if you can make energy, ATP, your chronic inflammation goes away because you can heal. That's why it's anti-inflammatory. It doesn't squash inflammation. It heals. And then the inflammation is gone because you've been healed. And then the parasympathomimetic, meaning your body's healing. So it's a revitalizer, it gives you energy. Okay, so studies involving animals and humans indicate that the use of shilajit, which is another word for fulvic acid, may be safe and free from adverse effects. Okay, now if you have any adverse effects from taking fulvic acid or humic acid, it's because garbage is coming out of your body. Toxins are coming out. Okay, so here's a few studies. Fulvic acid contains more than 77 macro and trace minerals right there. This means that they are masters at conducting electricity and aiding in absorption. So conducting electricity, that means that in the mitochondria, in order to make ATP, the mitochondria sets up an electrical gradient with electrons. Electricity is the movement of electrons. Okay, electronicity, electricity. So in the mitochondria, electrons are moved from one location to another, and they're sort of packed in between these membranes, and you get this electrical buildup, and that electrical buildup is then what charges the production of ATP. Okay, so adding in fulvic acid with all these minerals, you can increase your electrical potential to make more ATP. And then this study is about fulvic acid and diabetes, the one in the middle. And then down here it says CHDFA. That stands for carbohydrate-derived fulvic acid. And they put it on eczema topically, and they had good results with that. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about this CHD-FA. What does that actually mean? Okay, so I'm going to go back to this. So what is all of this stuff? It's it's carbohydrate. Right? So carbohydrates are carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Right? And so fulvic acid is basically a carbohydrate. But it's not like you're eating sugar. You're not having those bad high sugar effects and causing diabetes. You're just basically getting the fundamentals of what our bodies are made up of. Carbohydrates, oxygen, and carbons, hydrogen, oxygen. Okay. So here's a study on, this is on that online library.wiley. Who was talking about Wiley? Right? This is straight from the Wiley library. So in mice, this is in mice. Anytime there's a study about mice or pigs or dogs, you got to make sure that it's in this animal. You can't always equate this to humans. But the point is, it had anti-anxiety effects. It augmented learning acquisition and memory retrieval, and facilitating communication between the immune system and the central nervous system. Now, all this stuff happens anyways. But when you increase the energy, the electricity, the ATP, all of this gets better, okay? And then, and in the study, they said they had different forms of the fulvic acid, and they had a pure form. And in the study, they're saying you have to have a pure form of it. It's imperative to ensure its optimum therapeutic effect. So it's really good for brain function, mental function. Okay. Now this is about collagen. This is about anti-aging, this study right here. So we don't want collagen degradation. We want to have all the collagen underneath our skin. So we want to inhibit collagen degradation. So with 1% fulvic acid, the inhibition of collagen degradation was 47%. That's tremendous. And 61% in 5% fulvic acid. Okay. And then this is a gene right here, MMP-8. In the presence of this, the inhibition of collagen degradation was 23%. The MMP-8, when you're, if you have it, it means that you age faster. Okay, but still fulvic acid helped prevent aging and collagen degradation. Okay, and there's that website right there. Fulvic acid promotes extracellular anti-cancer mediators, causing cancer cell death in vitro. Okay, so fulvic acid can kill some cancers, and this is one example of that. Okay, now cancer cells are trying to commit suicide because they're just running out of control. And so if you increase their oxygen, increase their energy, they can potentially go back to normal cancer cells, or they can kill themselves off. All right, so there's that. There's one way to go about that. So here's the anti-diarrheal mechanism. I pulled the first line out of this study. As the important component of humus, fulvic acids have a good anti-diarrheal effect on animals and humans and have been worldwide used in animal husbandry and even clinical practice for a long time. So raise your hand if you knew that fulvic acid was anti-diarrheal. So nobody's known that. Alex, did you know that?
I didn't.
Okay. Right, so this should be standard medical practice. You go to the hospital and say, I got diarrhea, and they give you fulvic acid. In every single hospital, there's 25,000 hospitals in the United States, and there's going to be 0 that have fulvic acid. And here this is saying, this has been going on for a long time. A lot of these studies are from India and outside the United States, right? And that makes sense, right? Imagine that. Go figure. Okay. So there's that. I'm going to actually, at this point, shut this off. So let me give you a success story. I'm going to talk about a couple different products with this one success story. And I'll tell you my own experience too. So I got to pull this up. So I got this patient, and we started talking on the phone a number of months ago. I'm going to get this as correct as I possibly can. So the first time that we talked on the phone was October 24th. So November, December. It's been 3 months since we first talked. Now, he lived in the house for about 4 months. And he and his brother, and they moved out because they got really sick. So his brother did some research and found out that the house was flooded. And the owner abandoned it. So now the bank owns it. The bank sells it for pennies on the dollar to somebody else. It was actually condemned. Nobody could live in it. The new owners take the walls out and they replace the drywall. And that's it. And it was just moldy. It could have been in the basement, in the attic, maybe the 2x4s. It was moldy. So 4 months later, he moves out. He's deathly ill. And he finds my videos on YouTube. He buys various herbal supplements and oregano and my standard protocol for killing mold and detoxing mold. And he starts on those, and there's not much change. A month later, we're on the phone. November 19th, we're on the phone. And he says he's the same or worse. He's got mucus in his stools. His blood pressure's going up, 146/95. He's a young guy. Dizziness is worse. Nose is all clogged up. Fatigue is a 5 out of 10. Palpitations are horrible. Tightness in the chest, upper back, horrible anxiety. And that's the herbs. I mean, that's my best protocol from October 24th and from my old YouTube channel, video about that subject. So then we talk again December 17th. Now this time I said, all right, let's cut out some of the killers, like we can stop oregano and that kind of stuff. I put him on 2 new products. And one of them, I have them here. Okay, so this is oxygen. It's called biomolecular oxygen. And then this is called ATP. Okay, now these enhance mitochondrial function. And they increase energy. They increase ATP. Now, they do some detoxification, right? But there's other products here that are more geared towards detoxification, and they're going to have way more fulvic acid in them. Okay? So, but when I look at the first ingredient of the biomolecular oxygen, it says polysaccharide stabilized molecules. They're humic extract, and then the oxygen. So this has a humic extract. And then polysaccharide polyanions. Looking back at the chemical structure, polysaccharide, that's like carbohydrate, the carbon, hydrogen, oxygen. Then polyanions means all of the potential biochemical reactions that can occur with that molecule. So that's what their scientist studies is polysaccharide polyanions. So anyways, the point is, along the same lines of everything that I taught you so far in the last 40 minutes, I gave this guy these 2 supplements. And then we talked again in December 17th. And he says he's 10% better. Overall, he pretty much feels the same. But he's like 10% better. I was like, okay, great. I'll take it. Just bear with me on this, and we'll get through this. Okay, so let me fast forward here. Okay, so then I talked to him yesterday on the phone. Now, the first thing I ask when I get on the phone with somebody, how you doing? And I want to know, like, how are you now compared to the last time we talked? And he says, oh, I'm the same. And it just about killed me, right? Because I'm in the business of getting people well. And he goes, well, my palpitations are horrible, but everything else is getting better. I was like, okay, good. So tell me, what does that mean? Everything else is getting better. Start listing them off. And this is what he says. He says, better digestion, better energy, no brain fog, good concentration, sleep is good, left arm pain is stopped since December, face hot to the touch is much better, anxiety is gone, depression, impending doom are better. Okay, leaving the house. He couldn't leave the house before. And the biomolecular oxygen and ATP made a great effect. The only one thing that's still the same is the heart palpitations. See, he walks up like 5 steps of stairs, and his heart is racing. He does any physical activity, his heart is racing. So that's the one last symptom that we have to get rid of. So now we're going to go towards, we're going to affect the thyroid. I fed him some thyroid supplements to try to calm that down and see if we can have an effect on the palpitations. But all those positive changes with all the symptoms that I just listed off, that's because we enhanced his mitochondrial function. We added oxygen, and we added this supplement called Mito-ATP that makes the mitochondria make more ATP. We just increased his body's ability to make ATP. Does that make sense? It's just that simple. It's really pretty phenomenal. And it didn't exist until last year. The oxygen was released about June or so of last year, so 6-7 months ago. And then the Mito-ATP was released, I don't know, since then. Okay, so they're phenomenal. Now, one thing about these products is that the scientist, his name is Jeff. Okay, so you got okay, so there's the 6 carbons right here, and this is a very stable ring, right? And then the mercury or whatever goes in the center, and it's very stable, and it leaves your body. And then here you have carbon, 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 right? So you can have 4 attachments, 1, 2, 3, 4. So you can have, like, here's one oxygen, hydrogen, hydrogen. You can have a double bond, oxygen, hydrogen, like that. Or you can have, this is a single bond and this is empty, right? So they're dangling, right? I kind of mentioned this earlier. I'm just kind of rehashing what I said before. But this is how you give and receive carbons, hydrogen, and oxygen. But what Jeff the scientist does is he infuses into the fulvic acid and humic acid, he infuses in more carbons, more hydrogens, and more oxygens. He loads them up so that it can donate more to your body. When you get more carbons into your body from fulvic acid, your body uses that to improve your body's structure. Your body's made out of carbon. If you're deficient in carbon, your body starts to break down. It's just as simple as that. Name an injury that's not healing. See, not enough carbon moving around, not enough electricity, not enough building blocks. Does that make sense? Right. So you can, when you load up on hydrogens, what we're taught is that, well, that becomes acidic, right? Like low pH, like an acid liquid has a lot of hydrogens, and that's very dangerous. You put your finger into some sort of a bucket of acid, you burn your finger off. Yeah, that's not necessarily true when you have enough oxygen in there to balance it out. Okay, so Jeff has taken a liquid like 1.2 pH of this, plus a lot of oxygen, and injected it straight into his body with no harmful effects, because it's not acid as defined by the pH scale that was created by man. Okay, does that make sense? He's blowing away all of the conventional science when he's making this product. Okay, so there's other products on the market like this. There's a product called The Gift, which is a fulvic acid, and there's a product called, I don't know, Restore, now known as Ion. There's a whole bunch of fulvic acid, humic acid products. And we carry the Ion one. But this is so much better because, first of all, Ion doesn't detoxify the body, this formerly known as Restore. It'll repair the tissues, it'll make your membranes smarter, but it doesn't detoxify garbage out of your body. Okay, but this does. It does detoxify. All right, so there's my little plug for Cellcore Biosciences. Now, when I started, they have a product called Biotoxin Binder, which is currently on back order. So I'm going to explain to you my own personal experience with this. Before I do, I just have to say this has a half-life in the body of 12 to 18 hours. Okay, so I worked in that moldy office right around the corner for 13 years. October of 2015, I get my first symptom. I get palpitations. 1 year later, I find the mold. In the meantime, it took me a year to find the cause of my horrible high blood pressure, swollen feet, cold body temperature, palpitations, difficulty breathing, chest pain, lack of appetite. You know, like, how come it's 3 o'clock in the morning and my blood pressure is 155 over 95, and I can't breathe, and I can't sleep? It's because of the mold in that office. So when I find the mold in October of 2016, I'm like, okay, great, let's start fixing this. And I start on a detoxification program from another company. I did it for 4 months, and it was good, and I felt better. I was very happy about that. But after towards the end of those 4 months, it caused diarrhea. So I stopped it a little bit early, and I was like, okay, I'm going to give it a break. I'll get back on it later. In the meantime, biotoxin binder comes out from Cellcore, comes in a bottle like this, and I started taking 2 per night for 5 days in a row, 5 nights in a row. And I wake up in the morning and I can feel that it's working because my chest pain came back right in the morning. And it's grabbing on to the mycotoxins. So if you have, let's say you have mold right here on the wall, it's releasing spores into the air. And on those spores are these things called mycotoxins, which are teeny tiny, and then you breathe it in, and the mycotoxins kill your cells, and then the spores grow on dead tissue, dead cells. So the biotoxin binder was starting to pull this garbage out of my heart and out of my lungs. So I'd wake up in the morning, and I felt horrible. So I'd get out of bed, take a shower, come to work, and then by 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I'd go to the bathroom, take a dump, and I felt like Superman. Coming off the toilet like, yes, like that. So the reason why that happened is because, 18 hours later, the half-life, remember that's the half-life of this. What happens is you have these carbon chains, carbon, like you saw up there. The big carbon chains are fulvic acid. I'll put F here. And then the small carbon chains, that's more like humic acid. So I'll put H right there, humic acid. Okay, now, the very, very large chains stay in your intestines. They can't permeate through the intestinal wall, so they hang out there. The medium-sized chains, they go through the intestines, and they can go in around the tissues, and they go into your organs, and some of them can go into the cells. Okay, the smaller they are, the more they can penetrate. The teeny tiny ones, that's the humic acids, they go into the cells, and they go into the mitochondria, and they go into the nucleus. So you're detoxing all the way that deep, and you're nourishing with the minerals and whatever else, it's providing. You're nourishing all the way deep, that deep into the body. So now, here's the humic acid. It finds mercury in your nucleus, grabs onto the mercury, and it comes out of the cell, and the medium-sized carbon chains grab onto it like a catcher's mitt. So now you have the small and the medium that are hooked together, and then these go into the colon, and then the large carbon chains catch onto that. So it's like catcher mitt, catcher mitt, catcher mitt into the colon. And then you take a dump, and it's all gone. And you feel like Superman, because while it's sitting in your rectum or in your intestine, your body doesn't like it there. And you feel it. You feel that. So I did this every day for 5 days. I took 2 pills of biotoxin per night for 5 days, and the last day was a Friday. I don't see patients on Fridays. So I wake up, I'm in bed, and I lay in bed for an hour just in misery because my heart hurts. So I call up one of the owners. I know the owners of the company. And he tells me about the half-life. And he says you have to take 1 in the nighttime and then 1 in the morning. So that way you're doing like 12 hours for 1 pill and then 12 hours for the next pill, and you're detoxing 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, instead of just at night and in the morning, right? So it's funny how it actually works out that way, and that's how they teach it, like it's designed to be that way, okay? Now, I got a couple more stories about this, and I've said this before, but it's well worth repeating. So these guys gave a seminar in October. I attended it. This is in Boise, and it's at a hotel, and they had these products, the liquids especially, scattered around like the water and the tea and the coffee stations. And there's like 90 doctors in attendance at the seminar. And they're at lunchtime, the hotels serve lunch with dessert, with brownies and sugar, sugar cookies. And I'm watching these people, I didn't have any. And I'm watching these people eat this sugar, and I'm like, oh man, people are going to fall asleep. This is going to be a disaster. People are going to be snoring. Well, guess what? After lunch, nobody fell asleep. And the energy in the room stayed very high. And even one of the guys who was speaking, he said, look, nobody's asleep. He goes, I saw you guys eat the sugar, but you've been taking these at the same time. Your mitochondria are enhanced, right? You're making energy just fine. Your body's using that sugar as fuel instead of that sugar like destroying you. Like, so when you eat a big meal and a healthy meal, you should be able to have more energy because your body's using that food as fuel. Can you convert that? Do you have enough energy to convert your food into fuel? See, that's a process. It's not like you just take in food and now you have energy. You got to break it down into fuel first. And then the fuel becomes energy. Does that make sense? Yeah. So as an example of this, there's a guy named, Usain Bolt. He's like the greatest sprinter in the history of humanity. He's got a horrible diet. His favorite food is chicken nuggets. But he's in the sun all the time. And he has awesome mitochondrial function. And he's sprinting and he's exercising and he's super healthy because his mitochondria are healthy. Okay? So that's the point here is like, and I talk to people all the time, they go low carb, they're done with sugar, they go low carb, they eat a meal, they have lunch, and yet they still fall asleep. It's because their mitochondria aren't working very well. Okay, so that's where these kind of products come in, Mito ATP and biomolecular oxygen and these detox products. So there's that. Now, so another way you can enhance mitochondrial function and the transport of electrons in your mitochondria, electronicity and all that stuff is you can get sunlight, right? Okay, so I live in Michigan. That's not going to happen. It just is not going to happen, right? I remember there was a weather report, and the guy was talking about how much sunlight we got in January. I don't know how many years ago it was. We had 10 minutes of sunlight for the whole month of January. And I'm sure we've had Januaries where there's zero sunlight, right? Probably like no minutes of sunlight. But so what are you going to do in the meantime, right? Enhance your mitochondria. You can use these supplements to do that. Okay, and I want to share a story too. So I grew up on a farm, and I just did a video where we sold the farm and stuff, but we raised produce in the 80s and earlier. But when I was a kid, I was working in the cabbage fields, and I saw them, harvesting squash and broccoli, and we did a lot of sweet corn, potatoes, red cabbage. So in the cabbage fields, those heads, they grow really big like this, and we had like these 8-inch knives, and you just take that head and you crunch it down, and you just chop it and you put it in a crate. So I got a hold of a knife, and I was a kid, and somebody took it away from me, but I was able to take one swipe at a head of cabbage and split it in half, like right down the middle. I cut out a slice of this cabbage, and I grabbed it, and I bit into the very center of it. I grabbed this wedge, I bit into it, and I'm telling you, it was like a spiritual experience. I'm not kidding, because it was food. Like, it was so nourishing, and it tasted a little bit like dirt. And man, I felt like, I'll never forget that moment. Compare that to what we have in stores now, right? So when I work with Standard Process, that's another one of my favorite companies, they have their own organic farm, and it's in Wisconsin, and they have just released this product called Easy Mag, and so it's a multi-magnesium, if you will, and it says right here, plant-based magnesium supplement. So it's powder, and they try to flavor it, but you can taste the soil. You know what I mean? You can taste it. It's in there. So I kind of dig it. Some people think it's disgusting, but it reminds me of that time when I ate the cabbage. But I'm thinking, like, is there actually like fulvic acid? Did I taste fulvic acid? Do you taste it in here? You know, did I taste it in the cabbage? Because that's something like our ancestors, or even maybe when we were younger, we had a garden. You know, you pick food off the plant, a tomato off the plant, and it's got some dirt on it. Or you pick something up off the ground, you just chomp onto it like a cucumber or something. You're eating some dirt. And yeah, it's not a matter of getting vitamin B12 from the dirt or something. It's probably more of a factor of getting fulvic acid and humic acid, and that's what's missing. And especially with monoculture and, you know, commercial agriculture, there's not that recycling of plants back into the soil like it used to be. So I think our plants and our soil are missing fulvic acid. It's a component of dirt that's going away. We're losing it. So in the meantime, we can take it in a supplement form. Yeah, go ahead.
I helped sponsor a set of videos on permaculture. There's a Permaculture Institute. I got 70 hours of videos on how to make raw dirt into a permaculture garden. It's real interesting. I hope to live long enough to get through all of the information and actually use it. But
Yeah, cool.
It's obvious what's happening. That is creating a whole bunch of humic acid and fulvic acid.
Right. So I get into very lively debates about diet, especially with vegans, and you know, and I'm more of a carnivore. But when you look at the quality of our food, especially like my girlfriend, she said she was raised on canned vegetables, so she thought green beans were disgusting, and you know, all the food was disgusting to her. And then she went into college, and there was some green beans, and she's like, I'm not eating that. And she took a bite, and it was a completely different experience because it wasn't canned. So, but those kind of foods are just devoid of that energy. It can still have the same amount of vitamin A and vitamin C, and you know, like the fiber is going to be the same, but it's missing these things like fulvic acid that we don't measure. You know, so then you have animals, cows, they're walking through the grass, they're eating some dirt, they're eating definitely the plants, they're getting all that fulvic acid that the plant has taken out of the ground, and therefore meat is actually way more nutritious as far as condensing the minerals and condensing these nutrients, and you get so much more power in just a smaller quantity of meat than plants. Yeah.
In the binders, and I'm taking a couple of them, you know, they're all saying fulvic acid, humic acid, or some combination thereof, depending on how they formulate it with that Jeff scientist guy.
Yeah.
But like other binders, like since you've been to the seminar, I'm interested in understanding how do they, you know, tweak it to make it, the HMET binder versus the biotoxin.
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I feel like I'm taking nothing but humic acid, fulvic acid, but they're marketed different. Because clearly they're different. I'm sure they have.
Right. So okay. So bowel mover, heavy metal, environmental toxin binder, kidney liver support, lymphatic support. I guess it's more about these three.
And then the one that, there's the reword cam, and then there's the one that's on deck. They're both on deck.
Right. Biotoxin binder. Yeah. I'll just talk about these. So looking at the kidney liver support, what Jeff says is he's infusing herbs. That's the other thing. You're taking. He infused herbs and nutrients into the carbons. Let me do it this way. Into the carbon chains and carbon rings. Bear with me on this. So kidney liver support. How does this go to the kidneys specifically and the liver? So inside it's got the bioactive carbon complex. That's that N-acetylcysteine for detoxification, milk thistle for the liver, parsley for detoxification, gymnostemma, which is, that's not gymnema, but I think that's for the liver, consultations for the liver, beetroot, liver, marshmallow. So it's the herbs that they put into it that directs it to that area. So the bowel mover then has aloe, cascara, rhubarb, ginger, black walnut hull, wormwood. And then the last one, lymphatic support, turkey rhubarb, so it's got some mushrooms in there. Cool. Did I answer your question?
Mostly, because I'm not actually on those, I'm on the others, and they all look very similar, and I just was very curious.
It's the things that are not similar.
Correct, and that's what I didn't understand. But they don't look that different. Like, those are clearly like, okay, yeah. that's gonna be for the kidney, or whatever, that's gonna be for the bowel. I mean, I would have been able to look at those, but I haven't really looked at them because I haven't used them.
Yeah.
So, okay,
Yeah.
that's fine, yeah.
So my viewpoint on these supplements, I mean, I've been working with their initial products like Para 1 and 2 to get rid of parasites for about 2 years or more. And I mean, we have a lot of products out there, and so we have those categories I mentioned at the very beginning. We have minerals and vitamins, and we have herbs, and we have glandulars. But here, for really the first time, we have a combination of all of it put together, plus the fulvic acid and humic acid. So it's all put together. Now I can see holes missing, right? They only have about a dozen products, this company. Here's all their products right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 15 products, right? So I'm still using the straight up nutritional, like Cataplex B from Standard Process and stuff like that, and the calming herbs and the calming nutritional supplements. But I kind of see these as a really good foundation for most people, especially when it comes to detoxification and getting rid of parasites. And I haven't talked about parasites, but I figured out parasites in 2011. We had a lot of people eliminating parasites back then. It's even bigger now. We're fixing parasites better now than ever before. Big and small. Out your nose and out wherever you want them to come out, they're coming out. It's crazy.
I just had somebody in one of our churches in New Hampshire, a young girl was having epileptic seizures, and I don't know how traditional medicine was smart enough to find it, but they said she had a parasite in her brain.
Yeah, so yeah, we could do that with muscle testing, but they'll do an imaging. And a lot of times, I saw a show about this once where they'll find a tumor in the brain and go in to extract the tumor, and it's actually just a nest of worms, so they're pulling these worms out. That kind of stuff, it's weird, it's crazy. But I tweeted out a story about a patient who eliminated a very large parasite. I tweeted this out last week. And nobody on Twitter talks about supplements. And they'll fight you on the low-carb diet or the ketogenic diet. It's nuts. So I'm talking about parasites and supplements and all this. And I mentioned about this patient, and somebody said, well, is she from India or Mexico? And somebody else tweeted underneath that, obviously, because there's no parasites in the United States. And they said, no, she's from, I'm going to say it, she's from Minnesota. And then the reply back was, well, the only parasite in Minnesota is a tapeworm. I'm like, dude, stop with the academia. You know, like, I just give supplements, and whatever comes out, comes out. Quit trying to figure this out. Quit trying to, just, people got worms, So, okay, I'm gonna open up for more questions.
Can you get parasites from the dirt and stuff on the leafy greens and all that?
Oh yeah, you can get parasites walking on soil, barefoot or sand, touching animals, drinking water, eating food, swimming.
Does vinegar soaking vegetables help?
Probably. I don't know. You should just do a parasite cleanse every once in a while.
Okay.
Yeah, question.
So, there's the bottles you got up there, would you suggest that's what you do if you wanted to start this program?
Not necessarily. It depends. There's, so we have people come in, we do our exam procedures, and we figure out where to start. Yeah, we have a pretty good idea, like, there is a beginning, right? Increase energy with the mitochondria. Make sure that drainage is working well, meaning the kidneys have to work well, the intestines, the sinuses are clearing out. Then you can go after parasites. Then you go after heavy metals. Then you go after specific individual organisms like virus or fungus. So it's a step-by-step process.
What would we start with, just the average person?
Well, if average person, I would say go to their website. It's cellcorebiosciences.com and look at, start reading through their material. It's very easy to understand, and it's pretty concise. So I'm going to defer to that. But for a patient, like for me to give advice, I'd rather be more specific. I'd like to take a history on you and that kind of stuff. But if you just go to their website, you can.
But Dr. Amanda gave me some things for parasites.
Okay, cool.
And she gave me something for my lymphatic.
Okay, cool. So you're doing step 1 and 2 right there.
Yeah. Okay, so would I take something on top of this right now for that?
We got to talk to her about that.
Okay.
She'll do the testing on you. Yeah. Okay, other questions? Yes?
It's not really a it's more like a statement, like the whole, the mito ATP and the oxygen, I was listening to one of his videos and he said, you know, like it's one thing to kill all these things, right?
Yes.
Kill.
Yes.
But you really can't, it's harder to kill, and it takes energy to kill them and get them out of your body, and so that's why those two are so important.
Right, so let me expand on that a little bit. So before these, especially let's talk about Lyme disease. So Lyme is like 80 different infections inside the cells. So you kill, and now the Lyme is gone, and now what?
Yeah.
You're still tired. Your joints still hurt. You're still in bed all the time
Yep.
because you don't have mitochondrial function. You're not making energy.
That's been huge.
So yeah, it's been huge. So you add in do this first, increase the energy. The killing part is so much easier.
It's like a whole paradigm shift of.
It is. So I'm glad you've been studying, yeah.
So if you know somebody that's been had Lyme disease, has been treated for it, and still doesn't have energy, is it something that you could recommend?
Yeah, sure, yeah, that'd be their initial, really their main three would be the oxygen, the mito ATP, and then they got this bioactive carbon minerals. And the bioactive carbon minerals, that's kind of like this to a T, with the extra CHO, all the minerals, 77 minerals, 12 amino acids, it's all in here. Phenomenal stuff. There's like 2 hours worth of material I could go over. Yeah.
Another thing I learned from their website too is that one thing that makes these binders different from other binders historically is that it doesn't just pull things away, it actually heals the spot that it took it from
Right.
on the way out.
Yeah, so it'll donate the stuff, the herbs, the CHO, the ions, the electrons. It'll donate a bunch of stuff to heal, extract out the bad stuff. So myself and other of my patients, Kristen's patients too, we have found that some people need to take a break from the Cellcore detoxification products. So it's been more than a week now that I've been off of them. But they were phenomenal. I took biotoxin binder for 2 years. And I've been taking a hardcore program from them for about 4 months. So I'm on a current break. Yeah. So does that make sense? That's just our clinical experience. You can't just take them all the time. Okay, yeah.
You had your mold protocol that was on your YouTube, whatever, some time ago, and then now that you've since, learning about these products, using them yourself, et cetera, and with prescriptions, are you still finding that you can blend? Everybody's going to be different. You're going to muscle test.
Yeah, blend for
and all
sure.
that, but are you still using, some of the, like the peppermint and all the other things that
Yeah.
oregano and what have you? Okay.
Yeah, still using the other herbs. Yeah.
Okay. From a mold, does this help? I would imagine this would help with any sort of mold that needs to be detox, right? So.
Any kind of mold, any kind of bug, any kind of parasite, any kind of, chronic issue, virus, yeah. Question?
So the people who follow this and take the supplements and do the diet, what's the percentage that you see get better?
High.
Really?
I mean, the results I get now are better than a year ago and better than the year before that. My results keep getting better and better. So what's cool is like the ability to identify that this group of supplements works really well, and now I can kind of get rid of other supplements, and that, see the results and distill down to the most effective and trying to be really concise. And so these guys, they have the best results I've seen when it comes to Lyme or autism, these severe problems. And the one speaker, he said, it's blood, sweat, and tears. You got to work at it. It takes time. And the other speaker said, he goes, some of my patients, they're on 8 bottles. I'm like, only 8 bottles? Like, not 15, not 20? Yeah, so he's like, 8 bottles. I'm like, that's not a lot at all. But it's these, go ahead,
But
Susan.
I wanted to say, in a comment, I was just looking at, they do the reflexes here, right? And just one of the things, I have plutonium in my liver, and back in April it was at 15x, which is pretty high, and then And 6 months later, it was gone. I mean, it was at 500x, and it was
With what? With one of these?
with
And
the
did you-
Redcom and the Biotoxin.
So did you feel better with it?
Oh, yeah.
So that's what matters, right? Like, it's just as long as you're feeling better and we're seeing the results. Just like that example I was telling you, you know, like all these symptoms are better just in the last month,
Yeah.
you know? Yes.
How do you know if you have, see, I come from an area where it's not that common, but there are places, even in my little tiny town in western Mass, that they have a tube going out from the basement of the house, and they're drawing air out.
The
They
radon.
have radon
Right.
coming out of the rocks. We have some of the biggest rocks on the planet in the Greylock Range. And it's like, I got a well on the other side of the valley. I mean, the water tastes great, but I mean, do I glow in the dark or what? I mean, how do I know?
So let's talk about, this will be my final story to answer your question.
Okay.
So radon. Radon is you breathe it in, it comes from radium.
Yeah.
Radium is a radioactive material. It's 3,000 times more radioactive than uranium. It's actually a byproduct of uranium. So it's very high here in Michigan too. My old house, I had to put in that tube to blow it out from underneath the basement. So I said this before at a seminar, but Jeff, their scientist, he went to Japan and he brought his solution for their radioactive material from Fukushima. Did you hear this story?
I've heard the story, but maybe the other people
I'm
have.
going to say it again.
Yeah, I watched your first YouTube presentation on this.
Right, so they had these vats of water, and it had X amount of radioactivity in the water, so every scientist applied their solution to it, and they measured, and his radioactivity went down to about 0, and the people conducting the studies said, wait, we messed up on your water. We didn't put enough radioactivity into it. He said, no, my product just works that good. And they said, nope, we made a mistake. So they had him do it again, and sure enough, the radioactivity basically went down to 0. And that's this. That's this product.
For the minerals?
Yeah, bioactive carbon minerals.
I'll take 2.
So when you live in a place that's possibly radon, or you're drinking radium in your water, half of Americans are drinking too much radium in their water. Half. You're drinking it. And yeah, and so you need this. Half of Americans need this. And then maybe another quarter because of whatever radioactivity. So there's that. Okay. All right, that's it. So we're cutting it. All right, thanks for watching.